AFR Talk, Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia. It's great to be here. We are going to get to the phones later on, folks. We are speaking to Twila Brace, president of CCHF, Citizens Council for Health Freedom. Her website is CCHFreedom, cchfreedom.org, cchfreedom.org. You want to check out her website and make sure that you sign up on her website. You can sign up for e-news that she sends out that comes out on a regular basis, cchfreedom.org, so that we can try to stay on top of this moving target called Obamacare. Twila, in talking about the exchanges, so if we have an option, obviously, of not going on the exchange, and you had mentioned some options like Samaritan's Ministries and MediShare and those kinds of Christian organizations, along with obviously being private pay. If we do that, and if Obamacare and when Obamacare gets fully in place, is that going to help us, not being in the exchange, is that going to help us get better medical care and maintain the level of the quality of care that we're used to, or is it really not going to matter?
Well, I think it's going to matter. If you look at we have four, in particular, four reasons that we tell people to stay out of the exchange. And one of them has to do with what we call limited choices. The exchanges are going to have what they call narrow network coverage, which means that the coverage that's available on the exchanges is going to limit your access to doctors and hospitals and clinics. The network is going to be limited. It's going to be narrow, so there won't be as many places for you to go, and of course there will be more people trying to get into those places, which then means that you will have less access to care, and it'll take you longer to access care. So, that's one piece of it. But the other piece of it is that the exchange is really the mechanism to bring national health care to the country. I envision them looking at a future, or I think that the future that they envision is that we will move to not single payer, but single seller, so that the only place that you will get health coverage is through this government exchange. And all you have to do is look to Vermont or Washington, D.C., where they have already said that all individuals and all small businesses, the only place that they can purchase coverage is through the government exchange. They've already put that into law, or in the case of Washington, D.C., right, into their ordinances. So this, I think, is the future that the Obama administration envisions for us, is that eventually when people choose not to go into the exchange, or when not enough people choose to go in there, because it is a redistribution center for your wealth. They want the young people in there to pay for all the people with pre-existing conditions, and if that doesn't happen, then it will be so expensive that the whole thing will fall to pieces. And how do they keep it from falling to pieces? But to simply mandate that everybody has to go there in order to get their coverage. So if you stay out of the exchange, several things happen. One is that you increase the possibility that the exchange will fail, and then, of course, it would be a constitutional question as to whether they could throw everybody into the exchange, right? But the other thing is that you are not within their limited networks, their narrow networks. And so if you have cash, you can go anywhere. And what our hope really is that more and more doctors will, unlike Dr. McWilliams, who is getting out of the business, we're hopeful that doctors will go into the business of a cash practice, either that they will have services that you can actually look online or look in the office and they actually list the price of all those services, or that they will do concierge care, which means that they will have a limited number of patients, obviously, because they can only have so many, and those patients will pay a certain amount per month, and those patients have 24/7 access to that doctor.
Yeah. Well, what about the hospitals, though? I mean, are there going to be, so if they are Are we going to get to a place where the hospitals are going to say you no longer have admitting rights here to this facility, or we're not taking. I mean, the hospitals are going to be under so much pressure, aren't they, to be able to deal with the government system, that there could be issues there for one of these exchange or one of these a private insurer or a cash kind of situation to get adequate health care in a hospital setting?
It's true that the hospitals could decide that you don't have privileges any longer, but the hospitals will be pressed kind of on many angles. One, if they start saying to doctors who are doing cash basis, which is an increasing number of doctors, that those doctors have no privileges at the hospital, then they will have more. They will find a patient somewhere that is going to sue about this. So, some patient is whose doctor has been told that just because they do cash, they have no admitting privileges to the hospital. There will be some patient somewhere that will sue, and this will become something that will, wind its way through the courts if necessary. So, that's one thing. The other thing is that, as I said, 44,000 doctors are not going to be around anymore in 4 years, and the shortage is expected to be over 100,000 doctors by the time we get to, I think it's 2020. And so hospitals need doctors in order to bring patients in and actually to take care of them. So they will be pressed on many sides. And my hope is that the hospitals will start to remember what their true mission is, which is to take care of patients, not to be a big business. And we already do have one surgical center in Oklahoma, which I think you've heard about already, that does cash-only practice. And they get people from all around the country. So the possibility exists that more of these types of surgical centers and independent hospitals could rise up and thrive in an environment where people just want to be cared for, and they start to look beyond their policy and figuring out where they can get the best care at the lowest cost. So, now we have some people who are going to India, Thailand, all this medical tourism, which is ridiculous.
Yes.
Why in America do we have to go and cross the ocean in order to get care that is at a good price? Well, we don't have to. It's a matter of making that situation happen right within our own country. It might mean that you're going to cross state lines, but at least you could stay in the country in a language that you can speak.
Right. One of the things that I've been saying since this bill was passed, and I talked about it again a couple of weeks ago when the market dropped dramatically, the stock market, we have an enormous amount of unfunded liability in state pension plans. There is unfunded liability that nobody has dared to estimate in unions across this country in their pension plan. It is to the tune of about $8 trillion in the states of unfunded liability. We can't withstand those pension plans cannot withstand too many more years of average market increases of less than 7.5%. Now, this year, they're catching a break, obviously, but they're still in big, big trouble. And I believe that the way out for all of this is going to be going into the state exchanges. Why should we pay for health care? We'll let the federal government pay for people's health cares, and they're going to start moving people, and they're going to start dropping those benefits in those pensions, and they're going to save trillions of dollars throughout the nation in doing that. And it's going to drive the idea of becoming a socialized medicine in a hurry. It's going to help. And I think that was one of the thoughts of, on Obamacare from the very beginning. It wasn't an issue of whether we can have a totally government-controlled healthcare system. It was going to be reality as a result of all the financial problems that pensions, local governments, county governments, state governments, and even the federal governments are going to have. And I think that is going to help drive some of these exchanges. Have you heard any stories in and around that? Have you heard some talk about that?
Well, when it comes to, I think perhaps the thing that I think about most of when I listen to you say that is the fact that there are now labor unions that are concerned about Obamacare, and in fact, one of them has called for its repeal. And the reason is because they now see that the promise that they could keep their coverage as they had it, was a false promise. And so I think, when you're talking about state government, local government, et cetera, you are talking about unions. And I foresee that the unions will rise up against this, and they will not want to be put into the government exchanges and therefore end up with, today they have Cadillac coverage. And in the exchanges, you're looking at narrow networks. Those are two very different things. One is open, one has lots of access. The other one is closed and has limited access. And so, that may have been the plan. That may have been, it may be that the exchanges were looked at as a way, as a solution to deal with all those unfunded liabilities. But the people, particularly those who are unionized, are looking at this now with great, great concern. And the fact that we have one union already calling for repeal and another thinking of it just shows you that there is an undercurrent here of discontent amongst President Obama's greatest supporters of the law, that now that angst is building across the country. So as you say, that may have been the plan. But I don't know if that's going to work well.
That point goes to 2016, and it's why I say every sitting Republican or Democrat is doomed in 2016 when the reality of this plan sets in, and they have to take ownership of it. They may win, they may lose to another Democrat, but they're gone. They better go look for a real job. But I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I'm going to hold you over just into the beginning of the second hour if I can, because I still have a couple other questions I want to ask you. We're talking to Twila Brace, president of CCHF. I'm Dan Celia, Financial Issues. We've got news coming up. Then we'll be right back.